Another guest actually in studio with us today, Kyle, somebody that you all might recognize. It is the commissioner of the American Athletic Conference, Tim Pernetti. Tim, thank you so much for joining All-American today.
Great to be here with you guys.
See, and here's the thing. We've put you over. You are in studio. You are here.
I can see you guys.
Yeah, we're right across the way. But here's the thing, Tim, is you are a busy man. You are all the way across the country. It is the American Conference, and they certainly utilize you in the American way, going around the country. I mean, talk about these first couple of opportunities you've had over the last few months, the last year of being the commissioner of the American and kind of taking this league to the next level.
Well, it's not been dull. I can tell you that much. It's been a lot of running around, Kyle, like you said, but I have to tell you, it's been beyond fun and enjoyable, to be part of it. Certainly it's a space that has its challenges, but it takes me back to the brief period of time I worked on a campus. So, my college experience playing football at Rutgers, I got to go back there as athletic director in the late first 10 years of 2009, I think I was around. And it was such a hard job. AD jobs are hard to begin with, but I was an AD in New Jersey with, take the politics in any AD job, multiply them by 10,000. But the thing that gets you through and the thing that's really I'm reconnecting with is being in the presence of young people, being at a time in their lives where they're thinking about the future, where they're being challenged by everything in front of them. And quite frankly, I told some student athletes at Temple this just the other day. You don't realize this now, but you're being conditioned in a different way for your future. Like, you will have benefits and advantages and, quite frankly, experiences that most young people don't have. So I love the visits. It's been a whirlwind. I'm a little over 100 days. It's 15 campuses to visit.
Yeah.
I'm down to the final 2 that I'll be visiting here in the next couple of weeks. But you can't be a good commissioner if you're not listening. And the only way to actually get people to explain in a direct way what's happening is you got to do it in person. Yeah. Like, in this virtual world, I actually can't stand it because it takes the human factor and the in-person engagement factor out of it. And that is really at the core how relationships are built.
And Maria, that is why it's important to point out that he is in studio today.
Yes, he's here with us
today.
And
he is physically in the building.
Hi, guys.
We're waving at you from the desk. And, I'll ask you, too, because you've talked about this a lot. As you've been able to visit all of those campuses, you've got to see what this conference really is all about, and the student athletes, the coaches, the people. So if you could describe it in a couple of words, how would you do that?
Gritty would be one. It's a blue-collar league. It really is. And that was, quite frankly, of all my friends in the business that told me I was crazy to get back into college, that was really what attracted me to this opportunity more than anything, because I do think that certain conferences have certain advantages that maybe others don't have that they've built and earned over a period of time. This is still, people forget, like, the American Athletic Conference, it's a young league, and it's built on, like, it's sort of like a lunch bucket crowd. It's gritty, it's hardworking. People don't expect anything to be given to them. Everything is earned, and it's unpredictable. That's the other word I would give. I think everybody had it mapped out in the football season. Here's how it's going to go in the American. And maybe they had it mapped out in women's soccer. Here's how it's going to go. And the script is not the script. I think that's a really enticing and exciting factor. What I always say about, and I worked on the media side for a long time, is the beauty of sports is it's just got this massive affinity, and it's got unrivaled loyalty. Like, people say, well, I used to root for Memphis and now I root for UAB. That's actually untrue. Like, if you went to Memphis, you're with them for the rest of your life. The difference between us and pro sports is you don't trade your school. Like, if your favorite pro player left or got traded, you might follow him to a different team. You don't do that in college sports. Like, you're loyal from beginning to the end. So it's a gritty, unpredictable league, but it's really built on a foundation of great people. Like, starting right here at the conference office, we don't have enough great people. We need more great people. But if you don't have the right people, it's impossible to get anything done. And I know that I'm new. I know I came from a non-traditional background, although I spent time in media, in college, on a campus. This is sort of like the last angle I haven't had the opportunity to work in collegiate athletics, but it's been dynamic. It's been challenging, but this is a gritty, tough lunch bucket league that is out to earn everything that they earn.
Very well said. And I think you can see that with the great markets that are involved in the league, the great programs, athletic department, great programs from an academic standpoint, all the way across the board. The American brings it every single week, no matter what program it is, what sport it is, and whatever's going on throughout the academic school year. But it's also an ever-changing landscape of collegiate athletics as a whole. So kind of talk to some of those challenges. You're like you said, you're still kind of getting your feet wet. You're getting to the campuses. You're putting feet on the ground, but at the same time, things can change from day to day in collegiate athletics with NIL, with the transfer portal and all these different elements playing a factor. How much of a challenge has that placed in your role specifically?
It's huge because the entire industry is playing defense right now. Quite frankly, I mean, everybody's playing defense. There's a limitless amount of litigation that's happening, and I don't think it's the end by a long shot. I think you're going to continue to see it, but I think my perspective coming into a role like this, having never been in one, is that collegiate athletics is paying a steep price for failing to modernize over an extended period of time. There's a lot of decisions that I think could have been made about student athlete compensation and their status in the world and their voice. And is there a way to get, quite frankly, an exemption? Like usually if you're not an employee, you can't organize and collectively bargain. I actually think in a student athlete's case, I don't think any of them want to be employees. Like I've talked to them on the campuses. They understand with employment comes a variety of things. It's not just all the good stuff. Right? I said to one student athlete, he's like, "Oh, I want to be an employee." I said, "Why do you want to be an employee?" Well, you have the assurance that you have a job and then you get paid and that you have benefits. I said, and then what about when you don't perform? I said, because when I don't perform, I know what happens. I get put on notice that I'm not performing. And if I continue not to perform, I get fired and they find somebody else. Are you prepared for that? Student athletes don't want to be employees, but they do want to have certain protections. And I think that people in government, they always say, is there a way to have government help the industry? I think if there was a way to create an exemption so that student athletes can remain in a non-employee status, but we allow them to organize and collectively bargain, then as a coach, you're not having 45 separate negotiations with 45 student athletes. You're essentially dealing with it in a more centralized way. It's a tried and true system. Just look at pro sports. The flip side, Kyle, what I love, everybody has already assumed that without NIL and without the transfer portal and without your ability to spend money and acquire players, you can't be successful.
Yeah.
Somebody go tell that to Army and Navy.
Absolutely.
Like, go tell that to Army and Navy. They recruit a different kind of student athlete there. And what they have shown is there are more ways to be successful and to build your program than just what the next hot, sexy thing or whatever way the puck is going is turning out to be. And I think that's been a tremendous story, not just for, selfishly for our conference, for the American in their first year, Army, and the success that Navy is having and the competition it's created in our conference. But beyond that, it's a great story for collegiate athletics because at its foundation, like I know what I signed up for when I went to Rutgers, education through sport. Right? At the foundation, it's still there. And by the way, Army kids, I played against Army student athletes and Navy kids in college. They're different. Like when they make a decision, they make a life decision. They're not making a 4-year decision to play college football. They're making a decision to be part of something forever. And every time I was able to line up across from Army and Navy student athletes, that would occur to me. When I stood behind them as a player during their alma mater, it occurred to me. When I go to games now and I never leave the game until the alma mater is over, it occurs to me like that's different. But that is a really romantic story, to me, given everything that's going on around us with the evolution of the business.
Yeah. And I think that deserves as much credit, if not more credit, for what they're doing now. I mean, this is as good of an Army team and as good of a Navy team as we've seen in quite some time. More specifically with Army already locked into the title game matchup with Tulane, a team that has dominated the conference slate over the last 3 years. This is going to be an incredible matchup on December 6th on ABC, American Athletic Conference title game. That's a juggernaut combo between Tulane and Army. Can you talk to really the excitement around that matchup and really the fanfare that's going to take place on a Friday night with the entire nation watching?
You sound like you're ready to play in it.
I would love to go first off,
Yep.
and I would love to play in it too. I think it'd be awesome.
Listen, just to tell you that you're not crazy, my wife will tell you this. Like, she's been able to come around with me to a bunch of games, and we were on the field at Navy Tulane during warm-ups, and we were just sort of in the middle of the field talking to Coach Summerall, me, my wife, and my son Max. And and then I'm just kind of looking around, and she's looking at me, shaking her head, because she's like, "Yeah, I know what you're thinking right now. That you got one more series left in you, but you don't have it." Like,
you sure about that?
The
You wanna
brain says
try?
yes. The brain says yes. I think my body would hate me for the rest of my life.
You would take one snap, you'd be sore for the next week, right?
Yeah, but
And she wouldn't feel bad for you either.
Not
She'd
at
be like,
all.
look, I told you so.
Not
Yeah,
at all.
Yeah.
But it is what's great about having a collegiate athletics experience, because every football student athlete and everybody that was on my team, like, you dreaded training camp. It was the hardest thing you would ever do, but it conditions you for so many things in your life. Now, when August 1st comes around, like, I get this weird vibe every year, and I'm 54 years old, that I'm like, man, damn, I'd kill for one more training camp in the dorm with the bad air conditioning and the bad food and not enough sleep. And so it's special. But in our conference, I think as a commissioner, somebody said to me at media day, "What's your goal for football? Like, as a commissioner, how do you know?" I said, well, I have no control over anything. I'm not calling a play. I'm not running a play. I'm not participating in a game. But as a commissioner, when you get to November and you have multiple institutions in the national conversation, you feel good about where you are. And this is not just about Army and Navy. Army and Navy are two of the few national brands left in collegiate athletics. And we're proud and lucky to have them in our conference and to capitalize on all that exposure and all that success. But if you look at what Tulane has done and what Coach Summerall's done, if you look at Memphis and what they've done, and if you look at other programs that are on the rise and what Coach Traylor's doing and Coach Golish is doing, and I know we've had a lot of transition with coaches just in the last 10 days, but success is built on people. Like, it's not so much about, sure, the ball's going to bounce this way, this is going to happen, things are out of your control, but you got to have the right people. And the places that we're talking about in football, Coach Newberry at Navy, Coach Munkin at Army, like, these are different guys. They're just different, because in a place like that, you don't have access to the type of talent that everybody else does based on how you're set up. No transfer portal, no NIL, arguably probably the best AD jobs on the planet right now. But what John Summerall's done to continue the growth and the success they're having at Tulane, what Ryan Silverfield's doing at Memphis in a challenging environment, what Traylor and Golish and all these other coaches are building in our conference. I don't think anybody realizes how hard this thing is, but we're excited to be in the national conversation. 3 institutions in the coaches poll, 2 in the CFP rankings, and then we'll see how this week plays out. I think we're really well positioned for what will be an exciting postseason, and moving the game to Friday night to be on ABC, unopposed on national television. Like, we're going to have the audience and have the stage, and I think the 2 teams, Tulane and Army, are going to put on a hell of a show.
Yeah, I'm certainly excited for that matchup. And I think you just talked a lot about the people, not only in football, but across this entire conference. I want to touch one more question on football before we go to some of those other sports as well. But that game on a Friday night, Tulane and Army, what is your cry to the people? Why should they tune in?
I think it's going to be a single moment, an illustration of all those characteristics of this conference. The grit. Like, you won't meet 2 more down-to-earth individuals. And remember, coaches these days have become like massive public figures. Some see themselves as like CEO types. They're in their own endorsement deals. They're in large contracts, and they're getting paid premiums. But sometimes I think the visibility and the success of that can get you distracted from maybe who you really are. You will not meet 2 more grounded individuals focused on the right things that are great leaders than John Summerall and Jeff Munkin. You just won't. And I've spent time with both of them. They're a microcosm of the type of coaching talent that we have in this conference. So why should people tune in? Why should people actually be there physically? It's going to be a great showcase of what has been just a 14-week knuckle fight in this league. And that's what really we love about it, which is you don't know what's going to happen. It's unpredictable, but everybody on each side of the ball is scratching and fighting to try to get the result they're going to get. You'll see a Tulane team that is different in how they run their program and their system and their talent and how they run their offense, what they do on defense, and then Army, who does it different than anybody else. Like, it's going to be a great example of two totally opposite systems coming head to head to see who's going to take home the hardware.
I love how you put that because it is a rock fight. And these are two teams that haven't seen each other yet, by the way, which it's not a rematch like you'll see in some of the other conferences around the league. But I'm also interested because they're two of the more physical teams we've seen all year long. We said that in week 1, and that's continued all the way up through now week 12 going into week 13. Now, before we let you go, I want to talk about some of these other sports as well. Basketball already getting started. We've got to see some of these other championships now in the books for 2024, moving into the winter and the spring sports of 2025. There's a lot of excitement off of the gridiron. What are you looking forward to the most as we get into those other sports?
Handing out trophies.
Oh, yeah.
Really, it's one of the most – I've only been in this job 5.5 months. But when I was getting interviewed, one of the things I felt like was really important to the presidents and the membership, and I knew a lot of the ADs in the league just from my travels through the business, was being present. Commissioner being present. And I know what that means. And I don't need to be accommodated to or catered. Like, I'm really low maintenance. And when I come to town, people are like, what do you need? I'm like, I don't need anything. Just tell me where to be and when, and I'll be there. But a good example was I got the job in April. I didn't start until June. And in May, I flew to Vanderbilt and went to the Women's Lacrosse Championship to hand out the trophy. And what I learned from being there was it was actually meaningful to coaches. It was meaningful to kids. A lot of parents that I saw in the airport that night on the way home stopped me to thank me for coming, including some on the losing side. But what I know from student athletes in all of our sports is they're not thinking about where their sport falls in the hierarchy. Like, they chose a school in our conference because they're sure they're going to have the best experience they can have at that school. And I want championships to feel like championships. And certainly you're going to see every commissioner in FBS handing off a football trophy in the next couple of weeks. I don't think you see a lot of them at Olympic sports championships. And I did lacrosse. I was out at women's soccer a couple of weeks ago, which was an incredible tournament with an incredible story in East Carolina who turned an upset everybody didn't think was possible. And it was special to be able to recognize the young ladies on both Memphis and ECU and hand out that trophy and see the excitement. Like, what I know for sure is ECU women's soccer program wasn't spending a whole lot of time that day thinking about where they fall in the hierarchy. They were thinking about winning a championship and taking home the trophy. I mean, they even asked if we could cut down the bracket banner so they could drape themselves in it when they got on the plane to go home. And I was like, I remember saying, who's got clippers? We got John Gilbert and the AD and I actually cut the thing down for them. But we have thousands of talented student athletes, and it's not any less of a knuckle fight in women's soccer than it is in basketball, than it is in lacrosse, baseball. I mean, you name it, everybody is going to battle. But what I like about it is you're always going to have that competition spirit. It's going to rise up. You're going to have challenges on the field. But I've been out to events and I see high-level competition and people treating each other with respect. At the end of the day, I tell kids all the time, they say, what can we do for the conference? I say, work hard, fight hard, handle yourself with class, and treat your opponent with respect. Because at the end of the day, every action you take is a reflection on who we are as a group. The thing the industry is lacking today, guys, is unity. It really is. And if you look back 2 months ago when all this expansion stuff was going on and our conference maintained the integrity of the unity that we have, it really said something about who we are. And I hate to sound like an old man, but like for me as the commissioner, I almost felt like a proud dad. When I saw that joint statement go out, I was like, damn, like we're different. We have something special here. We cemented our spot in a tier that I don't think anybody else is living in with us right now. We're not going to keep that forever, but the unity really inspired everyone in this conference to accelerate every opportunity we have, whether it's commercial competition or whatever it is. We're going to swing pretty big at some stuff that will get people's heads to turn. But it starts with having unity, and I think we have it at a time where it's unstable.
Yeah. Tim, just from an outsider's perspective, a media standpoint, this conference is lucky to have somebody like you helping run and help lead those people. You talked about how success is built on people. There are a lot of people around you that certainly help in that regard, but you are the one that's helping leading the charge as the commissioner for the American Athletic Conference. We appreciate you taking some time and joining us here on All American. I know you get to watch the show every week, but we're finally able to get you on in studio,
in person.
Thank goodness. This won't be the last time, though. We've got plenty of sports and plenty of conversation around the American to talk about moving forward as well.
I appreciate it, guys. Let me ask. Can I just ask you something?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Do you guys watch these shows after you do them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
do?
It's
Okay.
like film. You got to break down what you did good and bad, and then yell at yourself for all the things you messed up.
Because I'm a little weird. Like, sometimes I do these things and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna watch that at the gym, or I'm gonna listen to it on my walk, and I don't like doing it for some reason. But it's also not my profession. It's your guys' profession. So I get the whole, you got to look at it like it's film, but I'm assuming with all the experts we have at the conference that this is going to look really sharp when it's produced.
Oh, super sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
We got you covered. Don't worry about
Zach
it.
Fisher needs a raise, just so you know. And
Sounds
Chris
good.
Gray, I know he's just hired, but
You
he
just
needs a raise.
started. You're asking me for a raise already?
Slow down for a second.
Sorry, guys. Like I said, outside standpoint. Tim, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.